Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding Monday, which is the second reading in Parshas Tzav. We are holding on chapter 6, verse number 12. And God spoke to Moshe, saying, Zekarban Aaron Ovanim. This is a sacrifice of Aaron and his sons, Asher Kivul Hashem, which they were going to bring to God, B'yom Himashach, in the day that he is anointed. The inauguration day, the day that he's anointed, Asiras Eifa, you're going to bring a half a Eifa, a tenth of an Eifa of soilus, of flour, Belula Bashemen, that is mixed in with oil. A soilus of a mincha, it's going to be a mincha. Tamid, it's going to be a perpetual mincha. Machzis ba'beker, half in the morning, or machzis ba'erev, in half in the evening. Now she says, this offering of Aaron and his descendants, even ordinary priests, offer 1/10 of an ephah on the day they are initiated. So whenever a priest throughout the history was initiated to become a kohen, to do the service in the Beis Hamikdash, because they had to first go to school, Kohanim school, they had to prepare, they had to make sure that they're ready to do the service in the Beis Hamikdash. It was a major job, a major responsibility, and it took many years to prepare kohen for that. However, the high priest brings this offering every day, as it says, a perpetual grain offering. And the priest from amongst his sons, who is anointed in his state, and then must prepare it, and as an eternal allotment, chok olam, forever and ever. Al kol machvas b'shemen, al machvas b'shemen tiyaseh. It must be made fried in oil, in a shallow frying pan, rovechas tervena. It must be brought in a frying pan after being scalded with water. Tefine is to be scalded. I mean, tefine means to bake. Minchas pitim. It's a grain offering of broken pieces. Takiv, excuse me. Takiv, it should be brought. It's a pleasing smell to God. Rashi says meruveches is a scalding. It was scalded by boiling water, as much as necessary. Tinefena, then it was baked many times. After it had been scalded, he bakes it in the oven and then fries it in a pan. Minchas pitim. Now she says this teaches us that it must be broken into pieces. This does not mean that it's broken into crumbling pieces. Rather, since no fistful would be separate from it, rather he folds it, each loaf, into two and then 4 vertical and horizontal, but he does not separate the pieces. He burns it up in the altar. The verse explains this because over here he didn't have to take off because it was totally burnt on the mizbeach. He didn't have to take off any kind of kemitza. And so to the priests amongst his sons that are anointed in his that the Kohen Gadol has a son becomes the Kohen Gadol after him. Chak olam lavayid, this is an everlasting law to God. Kalil tiktar, it must be burnt, totally burnt. This mincha is totally burnt on the mizbeach. Now she says, a Mashiach tartav, a Mashiach mibanav tartav, anointed of one of his sons who became a Kohen Gadol after him. Kalil tiktar. Now she says, over here a fitful is not removed. You don't have to take the fitful off the sacrifice because it was totally burnt. It was totally burnt on the mizbeach. Remaining parts are completely burnt, the fistful and the remaining alike. Similarly, any priest who personal grain offering, that's another law, that if a kohen, any kohen brings a mincha, including a voluntary one, kolel tia. When a kohen brings a mincha, it's totally burnt on the mizbeach. Totally burnt. It's stated in the next verse. But there, the term kolil indicates that no fistful is taken from it at all. An entire grain offering is offered to God on high. Chol minchas kohen, every grain offering of a kohen, kol el tchiyah, leiseachel, it's totally burnt on the mizbeach, it's not eaten. Now it says, kula shava legvaya, it's totally given up to heaven. Verse 17, V'idaba shal Moshe leimer, God spoke to Moshe saying, Dabal Milabana speak to Aaron and his sons. Leimer saying, Zeis Teiras HaChatas. This is the law of a carbon chatas, a sin offering. In the place that they sacrifice the burnt offering, you should also bring up the sin offering. Lefnei Avaya, before God, Kodesh Kodashim, Chatas is called Holy of Holies. Like an oila is called Holy of Holies. Again, many differences between kachim, kalim, Holy of Holies, and lower level of holiness. Main difference is that it needs to be eaten. If it was eaten, it would need to be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash. The oil was not eaten at all. The oil was burnt on the mizbeach. The priest who eats from the chatas eats from it. If he eats from it, b'makim kodesh, he needs to eat this animal in the Beis Hamikdash, te'echa, which is the chatzar oil made. He has to eat it in the. He can't take it home. Hamachta, someone who carries out acts to service, becomes whereby it becomes a sin offering. He eats from this carbon. He has to eat from the carbon to bring forgiveness to the Jew. He needs to eat from the carbon. Hamachta, one who's fit for the service. This excludes one who is ritually defiled at the time of the dashing of the blood, for he receives no portion of the meat. A person is tamei, is not on eat. It is impossible to say that the verse forbids other priests from eating it, besides the one who dashes its blood, for it states further, every male amongst the priests is allowed to eat it. So everybody would eat from this carbon. Whoever was in the mishma, it's called the mishma, whoever was in the group who was involved, they used to divide the obligations of the year into groups, into family groups. So everybody, you had your 2 weeks, you came to the Beis Hamikdash. Verse 20, whoever any food touches its meat will become holy. And if its blood spurts on a garment, if it falls on your garment, on anybody's garment, now you have to put the garment in the mikveh. Chabis Makakodesh, it must be spirited in a holy place in the Beis Hamikdash. Rashi says, whatever touches its meat, meaning any food that touches, absorbs its flavor, becomes Kadesh. Yigdosh, what does that mean? It becomes like it. Meaning, if the sacrifice is invalid, the food that absorbed from it becomes invalid. If it's valid, the food that absorbs from it may be eaten only in the same restricted place. So if any bread, if any matzah came in contact with this sacrifice and absorbed from the sacrifice, now this matzah cannot leave the Beis Hamikdash. It needs to be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash. Big Rashi says, and some of its blood was sprinkled on the garment. The location of the blood on the garment of which it's sprinkled must be washed inside the courtyard. Now she says that which is sprinkled, and the fulfillment will not reach the earth. That means yata, it's going to spray on the garment. Now the garment needs to be cleaned before it leaves the Beis Hamikdash. Verse 21, and if you have an earthen vessel in the Beis Hamikdash, which you cook this food to eat it in the Beis Hamikdash, you cooked it in a vessel. Yishaver needs to be broken. If you cooked it into a copper vessel, it needs to be purged and rinsed with water. Now she says, why do you need to break the vessel? It's because what happens is because that which has been absorbed becomes nicer, leftover, and you're not allowed to leave leftover from the carbon. Depends what carbon. The carbon chata is only that day, so you're not allowed to leave anything left over after that day. So now this absorbed food is left over. So now you have to break this vessel. The vessel has to be destroyed. This applies to any sacrifice, that anything that's absorbed in a vessel that is earthen vessel becomes unfit anymore, needs to be broken. But if it's in a copper vessel, then or metal vessel, then you can kasher it. You can boil it in water, and now the kli becomes tahor. I mean, not tahor. It was not tamei, but kli becomes fit to use again. Lashon umarak, cleansing lotion. V'shmar v'shutaf, in order to release the food that it absorbed. However, regarding earthen vessels, the Torah teaches us here that they can never be defective. They never leave their defective status. That's why you cannot kasher chinaware. You have to put it back in the kiln, so that makes it. So you can't just kasher it like any other dish. Verse 22. Kol zacha bekayanim, any male kohen. Yayochal oisa can eat the carbon. Kodesh kadoshim, it's holy of holies. Rashi says, from this we learn the phrase amachta is to the priest who offers a sin offering may eat it, mentioned above, does not exclude other priests. But it's stated to exclude those who are unfit to perform the service. So there's a kohen that's tamei. That kohen cannot eat from the sacrifice. But there's a kohen that is tor. He's allowed to eat from the sacrifice, even if he didn't do the avodah that day. And any sin offering, some of those blood was mistakenly brought into the tent of meeting, in order to effect atonement. You're not allowed to eat anymore because you did an avodah, as Rashi is going to say, you did a unfit service, and therefore it must be burnt. Rashi says this teaches us that any amount of blood of a sin offering should be applied, should be properly applied outside the sanctuary. So we know again there are certain chatas that was brought inside the Beis Hamikdash. That was the chatas on Yom Kippur, for example, the chatas of a kohen gadol, the chatas of the entire nation. That was brought in. The blood was brought into the Beis Hamikdash. A regular chatas, the blood was not brought into the Beis Hamikdash. What happens? The kohen forgot, and he brought the chatas blood into the Beis Hamikdash. He sprinkled it in the oil made. That nullified, that disqualifies this chatas. It becomes invalid. V'chol, what is the vav? Rashi says, the Gemara says, this word includes other sacrifice as the same rule. That means if you do an avodah service to this chatas, to any kind of service that doesn't belong, you invalidate the carbon. Chapter 7, verse number 1. This is the law of an asham, of a guilt offering. Kodesh kadoshim, who it is holy of holies, like a chatas. Kodesh kadoshim, now it's offering its superior of holiness. It is a sacrifice, but its substitute is not a sacrifice. Where you shech the oila, you should bring the guilt offering. And you should sprinkle the blood around the mizbeach. Now she says yishchatu is plural. The Torah includes here many slaughterers, for since we find a concept of communal guilt, from which we infer that a similar concept exists for its explanation, yishchatu, they may slaughter, in a plural, to the connection to be slaughtered of an assenting offering, to indicate that a communal assenting offering is also slaughtered north of the altar, even though it's a communal slaughter. Yishchatu. I mean, there is a chatas, a personal chatas, a personal asham, a guilt offering, and then there's a community. So now, one animal that's brought for the community is as if all of them shechted it, even though one person shechted it, slaughtered it, but it's as if many people slaughtered. And it had to be brought on the north side of the mizbeach, and it was holy of holies. Verse number 3: V'kol chel v'yakim menu, all its fats needs to be brought from it. V'sa'alya, you have to bring the tail. V'sa'chela v'samachasa v'kerev, and the fat that covered its innards. Rashi says, why does the Torah tell us over this? The parts of the guilt offering designated to be burnt has not been previously specified, and therefore it's necessary to specify them here. However, with regard to sin offering, they were already said in Parsha Vayikra, and therefore that's why the Torah says over here what to do with the inside of the animal. As Alya, the tail, since a guilt offering is brought only for the rams or lambs. And with regard to rams and lambs, the tail, right? Because the ram, a sheep, has an extra fatty tail, and it's in addition to the other parts that are not in other animals. That fatness in the chaylev, the fatness of the tail. Verse number 4, and you have to take the two kidneys, the fats are upon them. Asher al-aksalim, that's on the diaphragm, as you said, on the kidneys. As I said, it's on the covers, and the diaphragm over the liver. You see that, and he takes it off. And the kohen would bring this all on the mizbeach. Ishay la Hashem, it's an offering to God. Asham hu, it's a guilt offering. Until it's designated as a guilt offering. A guilt offering is when what difference between asham and chatos? Chatos is if you know you did a sin by mistake. An asham, if you don't even know you did a sin, you're an asham. You're not sure if you did it. It's a guilt. You're guilty, so to say. You feel guilty. You're not sure 100% if you did the sin. The guilt offering is designated for another purpose, meaning for pasture until it becomes blemished, when it can be sold, and the proceeds used for the purchase of an ascent offering. This teaches us about a guilt offering whose owner died, whose owner had been atoned through another animal. Even though its value will never eventually be used for an ascent offering to keep the altar active, when no other offerings are being brought, it's known as the dessert of the altar. If, however, it was slaughtered without specific intent, it cannot serve as a valid ascent offering before it's redesignated for pasture. So there's certain laws. These are very difficult laws. What happens if an animal becomes unfit? What do you do? Or an animal that you're not sure if what you designated it for. Some animals can be let to pasture until something happens to it, and then you can sell it and take the money and buy another animal. Some sacrificial animals you cannot do that to them. You have to let it pasture forever and die a natural death. So you got to know the differences of these laws. This limitation cannot be expounded. Teacher, the guilt offering is invalid, meaning if it's slaughtered with the intent other than the guilt offering, say where it says who, expounded regarding a sin offering, because regarding a guilt offering, asham hu is written only after the burning up and the designated parts, and the offering itself remains valid even if parts have not been burned up at all. So there's a difference again in halacha. You got to go to Gemara. There's a difference between a asham and a chatas and a oila. Each one has its own designated laws of how this oila, even though they're all holy of holies, they are all different, ultimate designated if something happened to invalidate the animal. Verse number 6, Kol zacha b'kehanim yachlenu. Every male kohen can eat it. B'makim kadosh, in a holy place, yachal, it should be eaten. Kodesh kadoshim hu, it's holy of holies. Rashi says again, this phrase is expounded in Teiras Kohanim. You can go and look it up, how these psukim are expounded upon. Verse number 7, Kachatas ka'asham teira achas lehem. This is a guilt offering, is like a sin offering. There's one law to it. HaKohen she'chaper by lo yiyeh, to the Kohen who brings the kapara, who brings the forgiveness, it belongs to him. Rashi says it's one law in the following aspect: HaKohen she'chaper by, meaning the priest who fit to effect atonement receives the portion of it. This excludes a tful yom, a ritually defiled person who's had immersed in the mikveh, but he needs to wait till nightfall. So you have a concept in Jewish law that we know that the way a kohen that was tamei becomes tar, he has to go to the mikveh. And if he went to the mikveh during the day, he has to wait till the night. And by the night, he becomes tar. And that's why today women go to the mikveh at night, because the night, they do both two things together. They go to the mikveh and they go to do it at night. If they would do it during the day, they would also have to wait. If they would do it during the day for any technical issues, they would also have to wait till the night, because the night brings atonement in general. Waiting till the night. Until then, you're called a Tvul Yom. Tvul Yom means you gone to the mikveh in the day. So one who lacks atonement, he must additionally wait. And there are certain people who have to actually wait until the next day, that they have to bring a korban. So they went to the mikveh, they waited till the night, and now they have to wait till tomorrow to bring the korban. And they're not really forgiven until the next day. And that's called a mechusa kippurim, somebody who is lacking in forgiveness. So even though he went to the mikveh already, the nighttime came already, he's still missing something. He's missing the kapara. Or an oinen, for example, somebody who he has another issue, and that is God forbid, his parent passed away, and now he has to wait till the burial. Verse number 8. Regarding any priest who offers up a person, a person's ascent offering, the hide of this oila shayakiv lakoyin loyeh. So the hides belong to the kohen. This was a great value to every kohen to have the hides of the animal, because it was a valued product. All the sefer Torahs and all the mezuzahs were used this hide. So it was a very sought after commodity for the kohen to be able to have these hides, that the hides were given to him. Now she says, again, the Torah, a kohen lo yiyah, when the Torah says lo, this excludes a tful yom. So if you had a kohen, and every kohen wanted to get part of these hides, because it was a great value. So, but the Torah says if a guy is a tful yom, even though he's part of the group, he cannot take part of this. Even though he's pure, he's not totally forgiven on his issue that why he became tummy. One who lacks atonement, and an oinen who received an oinen from receiving the portion of the hides, he wouldn't receive this portion. Verse number 9: Kol minchas hashtafa batana, regarding any grain offering baked in an oven. Any mincha that's made in a deep fried pan or in a shallow pan. The kohen who brings it up, that belongs to him. They shared, the kohanim of the day shared in the mincha. Rashi says, for the pasuk, it sounds like he himself. One might think that it belongs to him alone. Therefore, the Torah states it will belong to the sons of Aaron. The next verse. I might think that it belongs to all of them. Therefore, it says the priest who offers it up. How do you reconcile the two verses? The grain offering is given to the family group assigned to serve on the day it was brought. So there was always family groups that were divided. Every group knew his week. It was like 2 weeks during the year. Every group knew their week when they came to do the avodah. You could have shared, you could have changed week with another kohen. Every kohen knew his time he was supposed to be in the Beis Hamikdash. And we could have had a lot of kohanim there. But and they all had a part of the korban, and that's what the Gemara tells the story. One kohen said, I got a little piece like the end of a tail, and they found out that he's not a kohen, because sometimes he got a little piece of the korban because there was a lot of kohanim there. So therefore, the Torah uses both expressions, to the one that does the service, to all the sons of Aaron, to teach us this law from these two expressions, that it was given. That means a person that was not part of his week couldn't come there and take. The only one who could take from the whole year anytime he wanted was the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol could have taken anytime he wanted the whole year. He didn't have a week. He was the Kohen Gadol the entire time. and he could have taken any time he wanted, and he could have taken as much as he wanted. Everybody else was your week, and they split up the carbon, the carbonas, and everything that they had. They split it up equally. Every kohen got equal amount. And so to all grain offerings, the mixed in oil or dry. The chol b'nei Aaron, it belongs to all the sons of Aaron. Tia, it belongs to them equally. Ish ke'achiv, each man like his other. Everybody takes an equal portion. Nashe belulu b'shemen, it's mixed with oil. This is minchas tadava, it's a grain offering. Chareva, what means that the oil has been burnt out? Zu minchas chayta. This is the offering of a sinner, and the offering, the grain offering of a jealous husband. Shein by shemen, that has no oil. And that completes the Chumash for today. Okay, we are holding in the 39th chapter of Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe has been explaining the way everything is affected, Lamaila, in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, and where every neshama receives ultimately its reward. And there are those who receive the reward in Olam HaBriya, in the world of understanding. There are those who receive the reward in Olam HaYetzirah, in the world of emotions. And there are those who know Olam HaAsiyah, in the world of action. Depends what you did your avodah in this world. All dependent. But as Alter Rebbe says, on Shabbos, every neshama goes up to the Olam HaBriya. All neshamas are elevated to the world of Bria. So that's why Shabbos is Einig. Shabbos is a delight. It's a delight for all souls that they go on Olam HaBriya. It must be a little bit depressing because on Motzei Shabbos, they're all shipped out and they go back to their Gan Edens that they are situated a whole week. So that's the way it is. Having explained, so now we go continue. Having explained that the Bria is the abode of the souls that serve God with intellect, love, and fear, and Yitzira is the souls that serve them with natural love and fear. That's what the Alter Rebbe explained. These are very deep things. The Alter Rebbe is simplifying for us these concepts. The Alter Rebbe will now discuss the divine service of those souls who abode in the world of Atzilus. There are some souls who even go higher, and they reach up to the world of Atzilus. Special souls. The quality of their divine service, he explains, surpasses even the intellectual love and fear. This level of those tzaddikim, that's not all tzaddikim, that make me one tzaddik. That's a tzaddik gomer, who becomes virtually a chariot. That a tzaddik who becomes batel. Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke what God, as it says, Moshe Rabbeinu was a shechina medaberes v'techgroinoi, that the presence of God, the word of God, spoke through his throat. He was like a conduit of God's. He was a chariot of God, for God. They have no will save His will, and the very act testifies that they're utter self-nullification before. And that was a tzaddik gomer, goes to the world of Atzilus. Olam Atzilus, the world of Atzilus, Shulamayla Maseichel Masaga. Olam Atzilus is beyond intellectual grasp, Vasaga and comprehension, Vavana and understanding, the Seichel Nivra, the created intellect. It's a concept of a person that Pashit he's connected to the Eibishter, not through intellect. He already passed that already. He's connected to the Eibishter, he's connected to God, even in this world, because he's a merkava to God. Whatever God wants, that's what he does. Even a spiritual being in the world of Bria is, after all, a created being. It's still connected to Seichel. How high your Seichel wants to go, it's still connected to Seichel. So how high a person's Seichel goes, it's still connected to the Seichel of a person. A tzaddik goes above Seichel. A tzaddik gomer, no, not a tzaddik, because this person is a tzaddik too. A tzaddik gomer goes, a complete tzaddik goes above comprehension. And that's the world of Atzilus, the world above comprehension. Because the Chachma and Bina of Das, of God, of infinite light of God, are united with Him in Atzilus in a perfect unity. So over there is Meir, Eir, and Seif, as it says. It shines in the infinite light of God. And therefore, in the world of Atzilus is unity. Even though there's Esses Sfiris that totally bottle, that totally nullified there, it's the world of unity. And over there, everything is one. Everything is Eir, is light. Beyichud Atzum Nifla. Over there, there's such a unity in the 10 Sfiras. In a wondrous unity infinitely superior to that of the unity of Bria, Ma'ilam Abriya. So it's not even a comparison. There is some kind of a comparison between Bria and Yetzirah, between the world of creation and the world of formation. One is intellect, one is more emotion. But the Atzilus is totally separate. You cannot say there's even a connection, per se, between Atzilus and the world of Bria. Totally different reality. Over there is Meir, Eir, and Seif. Over there shines the infinite light of God. Kisham yardu lahar b'chinas tzimtzum. For there they descended in the world of Bria to illuminate only to a restricted degree. The Chabad of Atzilus referred to as Chabad of Eir and Seif. When we talk of Chabad, in Atzilus it's Eir and Seif. Even though there's Chabad, there's Chochmah Bina Das of Atzilus, but it's Eir and Seif. You cannot even understand the Chabad. You can't separate the Chabad, the Chochmah, Bina, and Das, the wisdom and understanding and knowledge in the world of Atzilus cannot be explained. As it's brought down when the Alter Rebbe would say the word Atzilus, he couldn't even end the word. He would say Atzi, he would get stuck in the word because it was such an urge. In essence, the Alter Rebbe felt the world of Atzilus. He lived in the world of Atzilus. He was a tzaddik gomer, but it was totally bottled, totally nullified to that world. Because in that world, everything is nullified. Everything is one. Because everything else, in the world of Abriya, Yetzirah and Asiyah, everything is a tzimtzum, a great contraction. It's a shining. The Chabad of Atzilus, the Chabad of Ein Seif, radiates in the world of Bria only after the light is contracted. There's a great contraction between the world of Atzilus and the rest of the three worlds. And that's where Atzilus is a separate world. Because the only reason why God contracted and created the world of Bria, which is called the world of understanding. That's why it's called the world of understanding, meaning that there's a capability of understanding. And there's a lot of levels in the world of understanding itself. How much you understand, how great you comprehend. So that in this world, the souls of the world of Bria can have the capability to comprehend God. Leidas Hashem, to know God, and to be able to have some kind of a knowledge and some kind of understanding, in the infinite light of God. Each according to the capacity of the intellect of the creation, that they're limited. Every creation, even the souls that are created in this world, are limited. Because the main thing is that they shouldn't be nullified. Because their nullification, if you take a regular person, or even a tzaddik she'ein a gomer, and you nullify him, he's going to be nullified. He's going to be total lose himself. And that's not a good situation. And Eibush didn't want nobody to nullify themselves. God wanted humility. He didn't want bittul b'metzias. He didn't want the concept that people would lose who they are. A tzaddik, gomer, is godliness, and therefore he's not nullified because he became that. And he has the capacity to become that. A regular person, even a tzaddik she'ein a gomer, doesn't have that capacity. He still has it in his own intellect. He still has his own identity. And we want to keep that identity. And therefore, and God wanted that, keep that identity. And therefore, God contracted himself. So it would come down in a Torah, it would come down in a wisdom that every person should grasp and comprehend and connect according to their capability. And they should not become nullified totally. Because if not, if they become nullified, they would not be in the Geda of creation. They would lose their creation. They would become part of the Creator. And they would lose their whole identity. They would return to their source, which is godness itself. And that's not the purpose. We're the Chabad of Atzilus to shine forth in Bria without being contracted, allowing the creator of Bria to grasp godness as radiates in the spheres of Atzilus. These creatures would be overwhelmed by the godly illumination beyond their capacity to absorb and would dissolve out of existence. That's why you go to a thing and they tell you return to its source. We don't want to return to our source. We want to return to our source of our soul, not to the source of our soul. Because if we return to the source of our soul, we go out of existence. We become the existence of God. And God didn't create even a neshama to go out of existence. He created a neshama to be in existence. That's why we say, Yiske Lakim Esavi, that God should make sure that even as my father's soul or my grandfather's soul or whoever soul you come to Yisker for on Pesach, that the Eibusher should keep that soul in existence. Because Mir Hashem, Mashiach is going to come, and that soul is going to come back again to this world. If the soul would lose its existence, it would never come back again into existence. So the soul is in existence, like the body is in existence. It's a greater existence, a much godlier existence. And therefore, you're going to make sure that this godly existence, that's why it's important. That's why the chassidus you learn, all the mitzvahs you do, and all the Torah you learn, is a lavush for your neshama lamayla. Is a lavush, is a garment for your soul, for my soul, when it goes above, to protect the soul, not to lose its existence. To make sure that the soul stays in existence. But self-understood, it's an aliyah in the neshama. The neshama has a greater existence. Because in existence of the body, it was in a great contraction, and then the way it's lamaila, it returns to the mother haneshama, so it returns to where it came from. It can have the capability of having a greater spiritual existence. Hence, the Alter Rebbe will now continue. It is only the godness and the contracted Chabad that creates the Bria to grasp and absorb, and even then only to the extent of their limited capacity. That means, in essence, if you're a person, as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, he says that if you're a person that doesn't have the capability of knowledge, it's not your fault. Maybe in a neshama, it doesn't come from that place. It's not your fault that you don't have the great capacity of knowledge. You're not per se given that capacity. I mean, you can pray, you can beg God for that, but ultimately God has to change your neshama a little bit to be able to give you a more greater capacity. Every person needs to know his capacity in knowledge and an understanding of godliness. Every person, don't fly in the heavens. Always keep your feet on the ground and know what you're capable to comprehend, how far you're capable to go with this comprehension, and how to deal with this comprehension. Because everything, the Eibusher contracted everything, so that the neshamas of Bria, the neshamas of great knowledge, then there's the neshamas of great emotion, and then the neshamas of action. And as the Alter Rebbe says, the majority of the neshamas of these the souls before Mashiach is the neshama of action. So even though we have the capacity of emotions and the capacity of intellect, very limited, but really the Tanoim and Amoraim, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, Tanoim and Amoraim, these were the neshamas of Bria. The Eibusher brought down these neshamas for what they did in the world, to be able to bring about Torah Sheba'al Peh and bring it about and bring it about in the way they did it. that will live and will continue till today. So we had that neshamas came down already, and they accomplished their mission. Then we have neshamas Talmidei Chachamim until today, great sages that come down from this world, and then you have the world of emotions, etc. Hashem, those who serve God with great emotions. Today, we're holding to the world of action. We're finishing all the neshamas that need to come down to the world, and our neshamas is more to the world of action. That the maisa, the action, is the most important thing. It seems to the contraction which Chabad of Atzilus undergoes in order to radiate in Bria. Thus causes the souls of the world of Bria, which is the souls of tzaddikim, also righteous people, maybe not tzaddik gama, but righteous people, to illuminate by the glow of Chabad, of Ein Sof and Atzilus, from Atzilus. It is contracted that enables them to have some perception of this light of God. Atzilus, created intellect, being a Bria, cannot, however, apprehend Chabad as they are in the world of Atzilus. So the neshamas of the Olam HaBriya can never comprehend the neshamas of the world of Atzilus. They cannot even comprehend their knowledge. They are above and beyond. As we learned in Tanya, Bnei Aliyah, in the Gemara, these sages were called Bnei Aliyah, the sons of elevation. These were great Talmidei Chachamim, like Rav Shimon bar Yochai. The Gemara says, like Rav Shimon bar Yochai and Moshe Rabbeinu. These were far beyond in their knowledge, in their tzitkus, in their righteousness. They were beyond comprehension, beyond the capability of even understanding them. To such a great degree, for the very fact of their being spheres, individual defined categories, indicates that Chabad is merely contracted. That you see the difference between Atzilus and Bria. That in Bria you can see the spheres. Each sphere has its own identity. When each sphere has their own identity, now you know the Chabad is not so strong. If Chabad is very strong, his Chachma is very strong, like in the Olam Atzilus, even though there are different characters, there are different spheres, they don't have an identity. They have lost their identity because the intellect is the most important thing. And the total Chachmas in the Ein Sof, which is Chachmas Ein Sof, the Ein Sof is what shines. So therefore, even though they have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, it's totally nullified. That in Olam HaBriya is, you can see that there's a Chesed and Gevurah, Tiferes, and then you come to Olam HaYetzirah, where there you mamish see Chesed, because there's the world of emotions, so you see how much less intellect there is. Right, so the degree of contraction, however, is much less than that of Bria, and therefore the creatures of Bria cannot receive the intellect illumination of Chabad of Atzilus, and therefore the contraction is much greater. Therefore, their grasp cannot grasp there at all. Meaning, the thought and intellect of the created beings of Bria cannot in any way grasp the light of Atzilus. Impossible. And therefore, Atzilus is only the abode for great tzaddikim. For their service for God is far beyond superior than even the fear and love derived from understanding and knowing God's greatness. They are beyond that concept. They're beyond that concept. They're a concept of Lamayla Menaseichel. They serve God far beyond any kind of comprehension. They're totally nullified to God. They serve God as Avraham Avinu, like Hineni. Here I am. Doesn't ask any questions. Doesn't doubt anything. Does what he's got to do. Because just like the world of Atzilus itself is far beyond their level of understanding and knowledge of created beings of intellect. The service is a level of a chariot. Mamish. They are a chariot of God. Ein Sof Baruch Hu, to the infinite light of God. They nullify their very existence. And they exist. To become incorporated, a pasha, that life is totally l'shem shamayim. If you can imagine such a situation. Haim v'chol shelahem. They and everything that belongs to them, totally the whole life, everything they have. The expression of Yehuda Anasi, who was the wealthiest Jew in Yerushalayim, said before he died, I had no enough in this world. I had no enough in this world. Everything I had in this world, all the wealth and all the everything, it was all Hashem Shamayim. It's a tzaddik gomer of Yehuda Nasi. Tzaddik gomer, somebody who had the wealth. It's all for the sake of heaven. He said, I can, God is my witness, I had no pleasure from this world. No physical pleasure. He did have pleasure. No physical, all was l'shem shamayim. All was for the sake of heaven. That's going to be like Mashiach times. That's why we talk about Mashiach times. When Mashiach comes, that will have pleasures, all l'shem shamayim. All for the sake of heaven. There won't be any strings attached. There won't be any selfish mode for oneself. Because you don't have self. It's all about God. Because these tzaddikim are bottled to God. They're all about it. They're all about to become one with God's light. They kiyam mitzvahs, to the observance of Torah mitzvahs. Derech shamru, as it says, as says, the Zohar says, ha'haves hein hamakava. So the Zohar gives the example of the patriarchs. The patriarchs, the chariot of God. They did whatever the Eibishter wanted. They had no personal agenda. Whatever God wanted, they said, Hineni, let's go. Because they didn't do it once a day, they didn't do it once a year. They did it 24/7. 24/7. So the truth is, we all can be a makava to God. We all can have a moment of total giving ourselves over to God. We all should be tzaddikim. We all should be tzaddik. We all can be a tzaddik gomer in certain things. The point over here, a tzaddik gomer is not a minute a day, or not an hour a day, or not once a week. A tzaddik gomer is 24/7. Everything he does, everything he says, he's totally given over. Kol yomeim, every day. So the patriarchs were constantly in the state of self-nullification for God. Denoted by the term chariot. Similarly, in the case of a tzaddik spoken of here, through the Torah mitzvahs, they affect the highest degree of self-nullification before God in themselves and all their affairs. The abode of their soul, therefore, is likewise in the world and pervade with spirit of self-nullification. That's why their neshamas reach up to the world of Atzilus. Namely, the world of Atzilus. Now, that sounds, so who am I? I'm a small neshama. I'm a lightweight. But whose soul, root, is oft too limited. A capacity for this perfect service on the level of a chariot. So that through his service of Torah mitzvahs, he be constantly nullified before and observed before God's light. He cannot do that. But we can all do it. We can all do this. We can therefore attain this state. Don't think that because you're not a tzaddik gomer, you can attain the state of bittul. Every one of us can do this, because it's Kabbalah's Eol Malchus Shamayim. To accept the yoke of heaven is a mitzvah to all of us, not only to a tzaddik. Every one of us, we say Shema Yisrael, we're accepting the yoke of heaven. We might not be able to accept the yoke of heaven on 24/7, but we surely can do it when we say the prayer, that we accept upon ourselves the yoke of heaven. And therefore, every one of us needs to attain this concept. Even if it's only intermittently, and only at times of divine favor on high, that the Eis Ratzin. What's the greatest Eis Ratzin in your life? Every day There's an Eis Ratzon. There's a special time in your life. It's called an Eis Ratzon in the Torah, in the Gemara. When is that Eis Ratzon? When you daven. It's the greatest Eis Ratzon. Eis Ratzon, a time of favor, divine favor. You should realize when you daven, when you pray, is a time of Eis Ratzon. That's why before the Shemoneh Esrei, you say Yehi Ratzon. May it be the will of God. God tells us that every time we daven, it's an Eis Ratzon. It's an auspicious moment. Shemoneh Esrei, and especially when you say Shemoneh Esrei in Chassidus, when you say the Shemoneh Esrei, the 18 blessings, and that's where we stand, and we're quiet, and we're like Malachim, because that's an Eis Ratzon. That Shemoneh Esrei that you say is an auspicious moment. It's an auspicious time because every one of us can reach up to the world of Atzilus at that moment. In that 18 blessings, we can reach up to the world of Atzilus. That's why we say the famous statement, Hashem sfasai tiftach ufi yagid tilasecha. Because in essence, when you come to that prayer, it's such an Eis Ratzon, your bottle, you say to the Eibush to open my mouth. Open my mouth and say the words of your praises. These 18 blessings, 19 blessings, are so holy that they reach up to the highest levels in the upper world, and you're totally, that's where you stand like an angel, and you're quiet. It's called a tefillah lacha. It's a quiet prayer. It's a prayer that's with you, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's totally an Eis Ratzon to ask and to connect to the highest levels of godliness. To the 4 rungs, we've learned this many times also, that the 4 rungs in the ladder of prayer corresponds to the 4 worlds. The prayer preceding Baruch She'amar corresponds to the world of Asiya. The verses of praise, Psukkah de Zimra, is the world of Yetzirah. That's why it's praises. It's the concept of emotion. The Shema is, so the whole beginning of prayer, till Baruch She'amar, is the world of Asiya, and that's why we do the blessings of all the things that God gave us, the karbanis, all the sacrifices. It's all the world of Asiya. Then we come to Baruch She'amar, it's the world of Yetzirah, the world of praises, emotions. And then we come to the Shema. Shema, the blessings before the Shema. Shema itself, the blessings after the Shema. That's Olam Habriya. We're coming to the world of understanding, the world that is the concept of where I have already bittul. I understand why I need bittul, but it's not totally bittul. It's to bittul to my understanding. And then you come to Shemoneh Esrei, which is the highest level in this rug. Olam Atzilus. You come to the world of emanation, come to the world of total nullification, total unity. Shemoneh Esrei, world of Atzilus. So every day, a Jew can do this. Every day, a Jew can become a tzaddik gomer. Depends how long you're going to say Shemoneh Esrei. But ultimately, after Shemoneh Esrei, you're going to go back to your situation. But at least during Shemoneh Esrei, you can have a as it says, Eis Ratzon, it's an auspicious time. Don't blow away this auspicious time. And grasp this auspicious time to connect to the highest levels in the spiritual world. And especially when we bow in Shemoneh Esrei. Because we know that's the only, besides Baruch Hu, where we bow, but in Shemoneh Esrei we bow 5 times that we bow in Shemoneh Esrei. When we bow, Yebechinas Hatzilas, the bowing that we say that when we bow is that's when we touch the world, because that's total bottle. That shows on my total nullification. I'm bowing before God. It's Chaim, the Kabbalah Shabbos, as it's brought down in the Zohar. Because that embodies the idea of self-nullification. In the light of God. Because that, when I bow, I bottle to God. I nullify myself to God. In that case, of he who attains the level of a chariot, only such times that even these times the Prince of Abode, his soul is in Abriya, for he's dealing here with his soul associated in Elam Abriya, and talent. That moment, you can have an ascent to the world of Atzilus, as it's brought down in the Arizah, the soul arises to the world of Atzilus, the feminine waters, as it's known from the students of Kabbalah. Wow, what a beautiful Tanya of the day. What a beautiful Tanya. What an inspiring Tanya. But that completes the Tanya for today. Today is the 9th day of the month. In Tillim, in your Psalms, it's chapter 49 to chapter 54. If you say those 6 chapters, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes in the day today, for the 9th day of Nisan, the Rebbe writes, Jewish wealth is not houses and gold. The everlasting Jewish wealth is being Jews who keep Torah and mitzvahs and bring into the world children and grandchildren who keep Torah and mitzvahs. That is Jewish wealth. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful day. And Amir Hashem, we'll see you all tomorrow. And we'll continue at 8 o'clock, the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful